Hey guys, it's Alyssa, and welcome back to my channel, The Divine Venus, where I put out videos every Friday or Venus Day. Today's a little bit different. Today is Monday, also known as the Day of the Moon or Moon Day. And I thought I would give you some sort of different content than you're used to from me. So I wanted to get together with some of my friends who are also creators on YouTube to discuss some of the current events, the transits, as well as what it's like to be a female creator on YouTube doing astrology, tarot, etc. So I invited Stargirl, the Practical Witch, and Bridget Love. Their channels will be linked below so that you can check them out if you do not know who they are. And we discussed this over Zoom. I wanted to leave this here for you guys to watch. And if you're into that, if you're into conversations and kind of being a fly on the wall to what we are discussing, this is for you. If you're not into that, it's not for you. And I'll see you on Friday. Make sure if you like this video, though, that you like it and you subscribe to my channel if you have not, because only just don't subscribe to my channel. Anyway, I hope you see a little softer side of me during this conversation. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye. Because I'm like, the worst type of comment that I get is, Alyssa, I thought better of you.
That's the one thing I want to tell you, that like I feel like it's so crazy how like the people that follow you, like they believe anything. I mean, think the YouTube world, like people get on it and they just believe everything that's being posted. And instead of like seeing both sides of the story, or let's say like, for example, someone makes a video about you, but then you can't defend yourself, or you haven't defended yourself yet for people to see that point of view. So it's like, I think the worst thing that I hate to see, especially, is when people say, oh, I thought of this of Bridget, and, she completely disappointed me, when they don't even know my side of the story, because I've never been able to even present it. So
Yeah.
that's just something that it really just gets to me as a creator, because
Yeah, no, it makes, I didn't want to interrupt you because I'm an interrupter, but I was like, yeah, because it's also psychologically true that the person who comes out and says their thing first will always be locked in that everybody else's mind. So even though there are people who will try to say, like, give you the benefit of the doubt when they hear a bad story about you, the majority of people don't do that. They hear it, they've emotionally reacted, and that's psychologically now embedded in their brain. Like, what the idea that they received when they were most frightened is now their confirmation biased. So they're like, I heard this awful thing about you, I only believe it now. And I just can't. Like, you didn't give a good enough apology, you didn't fight back enough, you didn't show receipts, like whatever it was. And you're like, well, there's nothing to show because there's nothing, this is not real. Like, it's not a thing. It's completely fabricated nonsense directed towards me. I don't know if that
Yeah,
makes
I think that's what's crazy with YouTube. It's like regular, I'm not calling us celebrities by any means, but we're well known by, our subscribers, which is, if you think about your subscribers in a room, that's a lot of people that see you, know about you. But with most celebrities, they have PR agents, they have managers like controlling their image. So you're not going to hear a lot of their dirty laundry on e-news. It's like, it's very, or whatever you do, it's very much put out by their publicists. YouTubers don't have that. We have ourselves, and we are just like everybody else, except we have some subscribers on YouTube. That's why it's crazy to me that people think YouTubers are celebrities. It's like, maybe if you have 22 million subscribers, but not if you're under like even 3 million, under 3 million. You're just
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a job at this point where you're putting yourself out there. It's like, we don't sit in our room and go, damn, I'm so famous, man. I'm just like, I got my manager and my publicist, and I'm like, really cool. I gotta, like, but then here's the very same situation is, like, a lot of YouTubers get people coming to their houses, and they don't have enough money for bodyguards. They don't have all of this energy. Like, people find out where you live, and they'll search you because you're searchable on the internet. There's no one protecting you in that situation. And I noticed, like, when you're growing, you hit these little bumps in the road. Like, the first time somebody finds your address and sends you something, it's a strange little situation because we are, like, you're high enough to where people are like interested in either bringing you down or trying to put you on a pedestal, and none of those actually, you're not worthy of either of those. Like, I'm not worthy enough for you to try to kill my career. I'm not worthy enough for you to think that I'm fucking God. I'm not. Like, I'm not even close. I'm like somewhere in the middle, yet still those things happen. And it just takes one person. You only need 10 subscribers to get one crazy person to go after you, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just the way.
I just think that, you know, the thing that happens too is that we're living in a generation right now, especially younger people, who I feel like they expect perfection. And I think it has a lot to do with there's this concept called the growth versus I forgot, it's the growth versus the effort. I forgot what it was called. But yeah, it's basically like always expecting perfection. And then once somebody slips off of that image, it's just like, oh, you know, like you're completely incredible. You don't have any value. So once that image is slipped, it's like, now it's like my whole image is completely embellished in what was said about me because of the perfection that people expect. And I think that's the thing that really, I think that's really the thing that really has really brought us to this cancel culture aspect that we've been experiencing, because it's like people want to see that image only when you're like putting yourself out there, you know, like that's the only thing you want to see. But if anything that is outside of that, and that's why so many YouTubers are such in a box too, because, you know, we're stuck in this astrology spiritual community, but it's like like if I were to talk about, for example, something completely different, like people are like, fuck your channel, like, crap, you know. So it's like, you know what I mean?
You know what else? Like, I lose hundreds of followers every time I post a video. Like, literally, no joke. Like, I just show it to my husband. I'm like, okay, I posted a video, and then I like go down 100 followers, like subscribers. I'm like, because immediately they see my face and they're like, "Fuck you." And I'm like, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
it's the algorithm too, because I was working with someone who's helping me with the YouTube algorithm and how it works behind the scenes briefly. And they were telling me that, oh, well, YouTube will only recommend you if you fall into your search category. So, you know, we do astrology and tarot. So you put that in your search category, and now YouTube will only recommend you if you're talking about astrology and tarot. If you try to do a craft video, a lifestyle video, they won't generate it.
That's crazy. And actually, you just gave up like good insider tips for anyone wanting to start a YouTube channel to get on the algorithm, the like godforsaken fucking algorithm of death. Like, it is like it's an entire process. And actually, I just was told, because I never wanted to do this, but sometimes I have to eat crow, like in my own, is like, you have to upload regularly, Alyssa, like pick a day and do that, because the algorithm also will pay attention to that. At least either if you're uploading regularly, like normally, and there's not really a lot of big gaps, or if it's like once a week in the exact same spot. And I was like, okay.
But that really kills your soul if you're a creator. So staying in that same box, like it's just, a lot of YouTubers feel this way. They feel trapped, they feel stuck, but it's their livelihood. So even though they might not be feeling what they were doing, they have such a hard time changing out of that. And it's difficult. YouTube is not a forever thing for most people. That's what I would really want to say to people. You have to have, like, what are you going to do with your YouTube? Are you going to write a book? Or what are you doing after that? Because it's really not.
Yeah, it's so strange, because you want to get out of YouTube, but then you kind of have to experiment within YouTube to figure out where you want to go. And every time you do that, you lose people, you lose the algorithm, you lose YouTube. Like, YouTube's kind of like, I mean, we're freelancers working for this big company, kind of, and then they have all their rules and you have to work within them, and you're like, but I'm not that way. But then also, like, it's just where this perfection thing comes from, because you have up down trying to show you, like, be structured, like very masculine energy coming at you, like, be structured, don't be too creative, don't be too interesting, especially when it favors trends too. So that's why, like, if a creator puts something out there, which is my big problem that I'm trying to like work through, is that if it's a good idea and it's pumped up, it only makes sense that other creators will take it, because then they get on the trend and they get on the algorithm. So it screws up everybody else's ability to create. It promotes carbon copies, and from the ground up, the people who follow, they are allowed to demand certain things from you because they do control whether or not you have a following, like if you have a job, if you're serving them. And so I don't know, people ask me why, like, I even care, like, why I have to state over and over and over again that I'm not a part of this, that I can't listen to what you want from me. And I'm like, because it's so common, like I hear it every day, and I'm just a little bit more empathic. And I know you guys are too. You just feel it and you hear it and you're like, I know you don't want me to change, and I have to actually make an actual statement to tell you that I'm going to, because if I don't, I'll just keep doing the exact same thing for you. I'll serve you because I care. I don't know. It's not like it's a weird experience.
I do think about, like, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was gonna say, you go ahead.
Can I edit this out, because this is so awkward. This is like my worst fear. It's like waving at somebody and then they're waving at somebody else. Like that was.
Stop it! You just broke my heart. Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, I feel like I think the psychology of the viewer of YouTube, like the viewers, like they have a psychology of like, I'm greater than thou because I am your subscriber, so I own you. And so I feel like that's the thing that they tend to think when you do something wrong. It's like, because, think about it. Why do you think people love drama? The reason why people love drama is because they want to be able to focus on someone else's shortcomings rather than their own. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to just point out your finger and be like, look at this girl. She did this. She did that. Right. So I think it comes from a self-righteous place. And I think everybody wants to experience that.
A lot of people do. And a lot of people are suffering and they're miserable. And part of it's not their fault because the world is burning. And what they have to do is go into some self-introspection. But why do that when there's somebody to cancel today? That feels a lot better. It's like blowing off steam. And if enough people blow off steam, you can actually really hurt a person. But they don't see that because all for them, it's just one little steam that they blew off. Like, one little tiny steam in the drop in the steam ocean of killing somebody's entire career or their life, etc.
Yeah, you know what? I can relate to that though, because when I was younger, I was like in the music scene in Maryland, and I was not as talented as these people. I was not as far up as these people, and I would just hate these girls so much, and I would like say the awfulest things behind their backs because I was so jealous. So when I see people around like doing that, to me, or like maybe they don't like my face, whatever it is, it's like I almost can empathize because I know what it's like to feel like that. That's what's crazy. I'm like, oh man, I was there one time, like because when you see another woman your age like getting ahead and like, just like, oh, she has nice clothes, she's prettier than me, her Instagram's better, like it's natural to feel like jealous. Like, and that's one thing I don't really like about some of the spiritual teachings, where we shouldn't feel those emotions, we should just suppress those emotions and pretend we don't feel them. It's human nature to feel it. It's literally like how our brains are wired. And no, it's not good, but like the only thing we can do is think about it and go, okay, this is unhealthy, but I'm going to address and like solidify that, yes, I am feeling this, and then do something about it, as opposed to pretend we're not feeling it, because that's the worst thing. And that's where this cancel culture and drama comes in, because we don't want to face the fact that we're hiding all of our shadow, like you said.
Yeah. And even like, I won't say like that Shane Dawson did anything good. I'm not really going to even discuss that because that's the thing, but I do realize there are a lot of higher up creators who also want Shane Dawson gone. And it's why, because he's sort of holding a space. And if you think about that, they're holding a space. Jeffree Star is holding a space. And anybody, all like a not fringe, but people with millions of YouTube subscribers would love to all of a sudden rise to the occasion where the news is reporting on them, where they're actually famous, like, and they get into this energy. And so they do like want to tear it down. And I think that's a big part of like why you see so much drama amongst YouTubers in general. They're all trying to even tear each other down because they can't admit that there's this deep envy within them. So you have like the people who aren't creators who are feeling this certain way. And then you have the people who are creators who are looking at anybody a little bit more popular than them and being like, I need this. And it is weird in like the spiritual teachings, because if you don't admit, hey, I'm jealous of this person, it all of a sudden is deep envy. And once it's deep envy, it's reckless, it's mean, it's abusive, and it's public. Like it's so public, and then you can just go after somebody who you think is gatekeeping what belongs to you. And in reality, there's space for everybody, but we don't really see it that way.
I think it's also the fact that the reason why this envy thing happens is because on YouTube, we all start from the same page. You know, we all start with 0 subscribers. We all start with the same struggles, you know? So it's like, yeah, you'll see some people like they'll hit it really big and some people don't. And I think, you know, people just have to like, I just think people have to focus on their own journey, because everybody's YouTube journey is so different. You know, even small or big creators, you're still going to have issues. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, you know? So I think that that's really the focus that people should be really focusing on, you know, which is like your own journey, because you can't compare to people. It's just, you just can't, you know? So.
And yeah, everybody's rise is different. And even like some people with 10,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube who also maybe do a tarot business or an astrology business could be making more monthly than somebody who's got 2 million.
Amen to that. They do, and I know for a fact they do. That's what's crazy, because what they're doing, they're not doing so much online on YouTube posting. They're doing behind the scenes. All right, I'm going to post it on YouTube, get my readings, get them to go to my website, make more money, way more money.
Yeah. The spiritual like invitation for women to have jobs. That's what is a huge deal right now, because women can get into this and actually help people and use their gifts and get paid for it, which has really never happened. And the biggest thing that I like really enjoy about it is like what Star said earlier, the idea that no one's a YouTuber forever. It's a means to an end. And we all are very aware of that. And you might go into it and be like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. Like my son is 7, so that's what he thinks. But for us, like you kind of go into, you're like, no, I want to be something bigger. Obviously I've mentioned this before. I went into it because I wanted to be an actress. And then I got into astrology and I became an astrologer because I really wanted to prove my intelligence, because I'm insecure about that. So that's my own thing. But now I'm kind of like, okay, I like to entertain. That's much more of me. I am a very good astrologer. I'll pat myself on the back, but that was never really what I wanted. But I look at a lot of other people, once they get into this door and they're in YouTube and they're making money and they have a few thousand subs and they're getting like tarot readings every day and they're doing really well because they can, and they're at home doing this stuff. But then it's like, what's it called? But once they get to a certain place, it's like, what do we get to do next? To take like the risk and go to a new place. Like, that's really beautiful.
I think that's important to say too, like for people who want to do it, no one feels like they're born great most of the time. Like I sure as hell, I don't know if I can say that. Like until my YouTube channel blew up, I was just like, oh man, this is it. And then, you know, and with Bridget too, she originally said that she couldn't believe, and then now look where we are.
And so what's going to happen when all these women who are the owners of their own businesses get to a certain level and then decide they're going to branch off and maybe do something that they've always wanted to do? Like maybe they want to be, you know, musicians, or maybe they want to be actors, or they want to create films. Like it's a gateway for women to kind of sneak up around the man, I guess. I'm not trying to be like, but it is like, there's gatekeepers everywhere, you know, to make it in Hollywood. You're not gonna, if you just walk into LA, you're not going to make it. It's not set up for you. The game is rigged. And I feel like what we've done here and what people are doing and what a lot of women are doing, and men, is kind of hopping in through the side, you know?
Yeah, that's a misconception that a lot of people have, is that, oh, well, if you have that star quality, someone's going to walk up to you on the street and recruit you. That never happens, even if you do have star quality. Because I was telling my friend, like, wow, you are really attractive, even on film. You are really funny. Like, you could be an actor. And they're like, well, why hasn't anyone approached me on the street? Because life doesn't work like that. You have to put yourself out there. Like, don't believe those movies. Don't believe those magazines. You have to force yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Rihanna, and I say it to myself all the time when something that I put out doesn't work or I don't get something. I'll just think life's a game and it's not fair. I break the rules, so I don't care. You know, the only thing that's on my mind is who's going to run this town tonight. You know, just a little mantra. But I'm like, it is life. Like what we're living in is not what you think it is. And the stories of people, even I'm like going to go and say like Jennifer Lawrence, she'll talk about how she was discovered on the street. I don't really believe her. She lied about even going to finishing high school and wanting to be a doctor. Like there's certain things like celebrities and actors, they're actors. They're actors in their real life and in this life. And they've created this culture that it just has to happen, or you got to keep grinding in your, you know, day-to-day job. I do wonder like what made you, if I can ask, just take that initial risk. Like what was it?
I had nothing to lose. I was really miserable at my job and I didn't think anything would come of it. I just decided to do a tarot reading one day and I posted it, and I guess I just got lucky because the next thing I knew it had 600,000 views. It was kind of just like, you know, when like that's why I wanted to talk about eventually the difference between destiny, fate, and, you know, will. Where does that come in?
Yeah.
But I guess a part of it was just like I acted because, you know, I was meant to have that win because I think it was a big part in building up who I am right now, like building me up as a person. Not really necessarily the blow up, but I guess it was just part of my development.
Yeah. Well, I think it has a huge trickle down effect too, because if you didn't blow up, you wouldn't have kept doing that. And then, you know, I wouldn't have found you and have been inspired to kind of come back on YouTube after I left for a long time. And so it's like those things, and not that, you know, yours, you having this like almost as a miracle happen to you is somehow like affecting me, and that's all that matters. But like it like affected me because, and I did wonder, like I did wonder like how you got there, because I think people do expect that either the miracle happens or, you know, it's not worth it. But like there's just different ways to do it. Like I was grinding for 5 years and I got up to like 80,000 subscribers and I was so proud of myself. And then I quit because I hated everything. But then it's like right after that, it's like there was this magical gateway for you and you deserved it because it belonged to you. I think that that's a thing. It's like there are certain things that do belong to us and that we know, and we can look back at it and be like, this is exactly what was meant to happen in my life. But we live in a culture that kind of uses something like going viral as much more important to our growth than having to work for something. And maybe you could even look at it like Saturn versus Jupiter. They're both very beneficial in your lives.
But I don't want people to think either that it's all astrology, like, oh, if you have a good Jupiter or Saturn placement, that means you're going to make it, because I don't think it is. I feel like it's a mix of both.
Mm-hmm. Actually, really agree with that too. And fate, destiny, like where is that? And astrologers, do you like, you're right, we kind of talk about it all the time. Like, is there free will? Do you have destiny? Is it in you already to take that risk? Because a lot of people will be in your position of like nothing going right in their life, and they'll have that ability to upload a tarot, you know, reading to YouTube, and they'll go to sleep instead, right? Like you had that moment, you still had that moment where you chose to do it. We're not just YouTubers, we also have like an entire like world around us that we live in that is kind of a subculture, and subcultures make for really good reality shows and communicating and behind the scenes. And also we own our own businesses. I love that, like about this is the one thing that I kind of do get mad at myself when I'm mean about the spiritual community, is that I'm kind of mean about all these women who have businesses. And I don't want to take their businesses away because it's a thing, but I don't want it to be such like a, if it stays the way that it is, where you can easily manufacture and monetize spirituality, then it becomes masculinized, and then the man owns it, and then women do lose what we've created here. And I feel like that, and like you have to, and it gets like that when you start spiritual bypassing and you're not authentic and you're just pretending that you use crystals and you do all these things, and it's just this whole aesthetic, and it's become an aesthetic so much so that when you just try to show that you're living your real life, even your real life is not aesthetic enough, therefore it's not spiritual. And it's like, how did that exist together?
At a point in your channel, do you feel like you were spiritual bypassing? Honestly, because I'm asking you because I felt like I was, and I feel like we should just be honest.
Yeah,
And
I felt like I was.
yeah.
Uh, actually, I tried really hard not this year. It's just very easy to get into it. But I find myself, it's very easy to just kind of walk up a hill of spiritual bypassing and then realize shit. And then you got to kind of scroll down. And when you like go down, I feel like it looks really messy. And so it's always really scary to like get into that messy phase. But when I quit, I wasn't even me. I don't even know. Like, and I looked at my life, I was like, okay, I'm living this certain way and I'm this astrologer and I'm helping people and I'm giving people stuff and everyone loves me and it's so great. And I get great comments. Like no one hated me anymore, which was weird because the beginning of my channel, like everyone hated me. Like it was very, like more dislikes than likes on every one of my videos. And I was like, all right, I can handle this. But then when people started to love me and I started to take down videos that they didn't like, and then I would look at my house and be like, my room is a mess. I have like a pile of laundry on the floor, but I'm here trying to tell you how to live your life. It's like I'm not doing anything. I'm wrong.
That's exactly how I got at towards December of last year. I was like, I'm struggling really bad with an eating disorder. You know, like my love life is publicly a mess. And I was like, I feel like a fraud for trying to sit here and give healing advice when I'm not doing it for myself. So that's why I was asking you, because I was like, I feel like sometimes people think spiritual teachers were just, or like not even, I don't even want to call it spiritual teachers. People who give healing advice are supposed to be perfect, and if they're not, then you shouldn't listen to their advice. That's wrong, because people who actually go through stuff know what they're talking about at the end of it, like how to get
Yeah.
through it, you know?
Yeah, it's the wisdom that like, it's the wisdom that matters. I feel like I had this weird moment where I was like, I felt like I was really being led by my higher self, by God, to really just say everything I needed to say all the time, even when it was ugly, even when it was low vibrational. And like after I got through it, I was like, okay, I get how I don't want to do that anymore. So I get how I'm more high vibrational. And I was like, so why did I have to do that so publicly? Like in my head, I was like, why did I really felt like being led to do that. And I think in the end, it was to show like, you don't get to high vibe with skipping out the low vibe. Like you just can't do it. We're human. And so people could see that I did like publicly in so many different ways collapse or maybe didn't do the right correct thing with my anger. But what is correct and right? Like it was cathartic for me at the time. And there were times when I really wanted to like yell at something and I got into my brain and it was just like, Alyssa, go eat a steak. Like you have a bloodlust right now. Like go like do something like bloody, but like don't go after people. And yeah, and then I was like, okay.
That has put you on the map. So at one point, is it good for your career? That's something you have to think about too. It's a fine balance though. Social media is hard. For any women who want to get into it, it's hard.
It is. And Bridget's trying to get us. She's connected with a phone. But yeah, no, it is. Because I'm like, it did work. Like for the most part, every time I went low vibe, it helped me a lot. And if I didn't, try to lay claim on the things that were mine, even if people didn't believe it, then I would have always been forgotten in my own understanding. And there is something embarrassing too that I think that I've had to deal with is like, what is my biggest fear? And that is that people don't acknowledge me. That like I am so invisible and I'm so not needed in the world that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that I'm out there and it doesn't, people, I'm trying to think of like the word, but like just acknowledge me. Just acknowledge me. That's all I like wanted for like sometimes. Like I felt like I was just yelling out into the world, like, please notice me, like, please pay attention to me. Somebody, it was like that little piece of me from when I started YouTube 8 years ago that was never satisfied. That I held it down to not embarrass myself. And now it's like, okay, I guess I embarrassed myself, but not really. I do feel like something good came from it.
I'm actually really happy you brought that up because it really points out like, so for instance, you are someone who really wanted to be acknowledged in the world, right? And I come off as someone who is just more like low key about it. But at the end of the day, people will look at me and say, "Oh, she's playing humble, she's playing nice, she's playing sweet, she's really not like that." And they'll look at you and say, "Oh, well, she's this evil person on the internet who just wants attention." But we can't really judge because our growing up was probably different, where we learned how to behave, or we developed different wounds. And that's the thing. That's why you'll have people who relate to you because they relate to your wounds, or relate to me and relate to my like people pleasing, like perfectionism wounds. So we really can't judge one another because we're just like a product of life.
Yeah. And if you do look at it, like you just made it click, and it's probably something I've never fully brought up. I'm like, I'm one of 6 kids. I have like Chiron and Gemini, and like I have this IC in Gemini and a Deer in Gemini. And I'm like, I come from like a very chaotic family. And if I'm not screaming, nobody's hearing me, and no one's paying attention to me. Like I would seriously be in my room for days and no one would know. And I just had that. So unless I came out and like looked at my parents or somebody in the face and was like, I exist, they wouldn't know I was there. And so like when I'm on the internet too, like, and I'm like, hey, you did this thing to me. Do you see what you just did to me? Do you see that? Like, I would like shove your face in it or something, because like you can't just, I'm not in just nobody that you can just do weird things to. And then like when they don't acknowledge, and there are certain people who like won't acknowledge it, and I'm just like, my anger, like it would build up towards them. I'm like, just look at this, just come to me. I'm not like, that's all I want. I'm not incredibly angry at you, actually. I'm more just like really sad, you know, and you kind of get to that point where you're like, I'm just sad. I'm sad about that happening. I wish it didn't happen. And I just want to talk to you about it. And I think that's why, you know, in the end, all conflict, all drama can be resolved when you're ready to talk about it. And unless that person's like just evil.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think people aren't like that, but it's just how people are on the internet. They feel like they could say anything. Like, if I met you in real life, we would have never talked to each other like that. We would have been like, hey, I like your work. Oh, yeah, you too. Oh, cool. And it's like nowadays, with the COVID, the internet is how we socialize. It cannot be acceptable to talk to people the way we do on the internet. Like some of the haters, like whatever their hate comments, I'm like, if I were to meet you in person, would you look me in the eye and say something like that? No, because that has never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
No, yeah, it's true. Because people, you don't even realize we have such a fear wall of like, if I saw you in person and I was a jackass to you, I would be so nervous that you wouldn't like me. Like that's my natural reaction. Is so why would I act like that towards you? My first thing would be like, oh my God, Star, I love your work. Like I would just go like that to you. But then it's like all on the internet, and I like see something that triggers me, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, bitch. You know, like you just do it, and like we're all guilty of that. But it's like it's a wall. It's a wall between us, and it is, and it's a wall between us as far as like not knowing or not feeling nervous when we attack somebody. But the problem is the wall's not there on the other side. If I attack you, I'm going to hurt you. Your feelings are still going to trigger just like we were in person. But then you're going to try to fight back, and you can't reach me because I'm gone.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with all that pain and sadness? And
It's ready for Bridget, her phone to work so we can talk about this astrology.
I know, her like, maybe we'll manifest her on if we start talking about astrology of cancel culture. So it's interesting, you know, you pointed out that, you know, like I do embody more of this like villainous quality, and it is the way like I have it because almost like in a maleficent way, you know, in Aurora, like I just want the king to like notice me, and so I'm gonna curse his daughter. Like I don't understand what's so bad about that. Like just it makes sense. You curse a little baby. Just kidding. But I'm like that is more of my energy because of where I came from. Where your energy is not. You were taught to be more. You figured to be more poised, which actually that Saturn and that moon makes a lot of sense in that you're like, suppress your emotions and then people will pay attention to you. And mine was very much the opposite. And I noticed like in cancel culture, like there is something about me that has become this way where I am a villain. Therefore, how do you cancel a villain? She's already taken on that role. But if you're poised, like, what do you feel like? hypothetically.
There's this video I watched on YouTube that really explained it to me, and it was a clip from the movie Bridesmaids. Have you ever seen that movie? There's this one bridesmaid who's very much like me. Like, she has to be a perfectionist. She wants to be perfect so people like her, but it just makes people not like her because she's like a robot and she's not relatable, so they all make fun of her. It's kind of like that. It's like, who do they think they are, thinking they're perfect and acting like that, when in reality it's not like that at all. It's just my anxiety playing out. And yeah, it's different. And I think that's like with some of the people getting canceled on YouTube, I think that people are acting out because they feel deceived, but really they deceive themselves. What you see in a 30-minute, hour-long video is going to be a partial mask in most people. Obviously, it's their job, they're performers. So if your illusion of them is shattered, are you really that surprised?
Yeah. I mean, we should be able to go in and look at every single person and be like, that person has a dark side. I mean, Kelly Clarkson said it. Everybody has a dark side. Do you love me? Do you want mine? And it's like, love Kelly Clarkson, but it's true though, because we do. And it's like, yeah, so if I'm upfront with my dark side, the one thing that I feel, it's almost opposite. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm uncancelable. Let's like act like that. Maybe I could get bigger and you can never really bring me down because I'm a villain. Nobody believes I have a light side. And that becomes a thing. Like, nobody believes that I could be good. Sometimes I get comments about the way that they hate, or they would hate to be my child, and they pray for my kids every day. Like, yeah, and like I'll like go to town on that. Like, I'm like, you stupid, horrible
You don't
human.
go there with your kid.
Yeah. And I'm like, I get how, like, I don't get it. Like, but it is like this opposite thing. It's like, no, Alyssa, you are not good in any way. You're a villain. That means you're a villain and you play that role, and that's the role you play.
Wait a second. So is that black and white thinking, which I believe is a character of narcissism? Black and white. I'm not calling everyone a narcissist, but that's black and white thinking.
It is, and that's why hypocrisy comes from narcissism. Hypocrisy and narcissism are hand in hand, because you have to jump from black or white. They're looking at you one way. You're either this way or you're this way, and that's it. And hi, Bridget.
Hi.
You came back. We were waiting for you.
Yeah, the outage, I think Spectrum had a nationwide outage. Alrighty, so what were you guys talking about though right now? Like,
we were talking about how thinking black and white like that is not a healthy way to think, even with people online, especially YouTube, because we're not celebrities. We don't have PR managers. We don't have art directors. We're doing this on our own. So, there should be more patience in seeing that we're just like everybody else, except we post online.
Yeah.
What I have to say about that is, like, I feel like, I think one of the things that we can do as YouTubers is definitely like just be really vulnerable, because that's one thing that I really felt inspired with Alyssa, is that I feel like she's vulnerable enough to put herself, even her flaws and her shit that she puts out there. Like, I feel like people are able to accept her because of that, because it's like she puts out her raunchiness and her. So I feel like, one of the things I feel like that can help with that is definitely like us as creators, we can definitely start showcasing more of our sassy side or our true side, not necessarily sassy, but, what makes you you. And I think what makes you you is going to be good and bad. It's not going to be entirely good, and it's not entirely bad. And I think that's the issue with people with the cancel culture, especially on YouTube. It's like they think that one person is just all good or one person is all bad. And it's like, no, there's always a gray area, with every individual. It's like, I also feel like people don't understand what exactly it is to truly love someone on the internet, because it's like, to truly love someone, you have to love their good and their bad. Not just like saying, oh, like, I'm going to like Star because she's popping right now and because she's the biggest YouTuber. No, it's about you really loving the person. And I think us as creators, we can definitely start showcasing that more, because I do feel like, we all do play a role. Like, yeah, I'm an astrologer, so obviously I'm going to talk about astrology, but also the enmeshment of astrology and spirituality also is something that can get very like mixed up, because like people think that spirituality, you have to be a goody two shoes, and it's like, no, you don't. You could also be a bitch. You could also speak your truth. You could be all these things. You're multidimensional, so it's like there always has to be an acceptance of that, like an understanding of that, to truly understand like how to really appreciate our creators. So I just feel like I just always say this, look, if you're going to expect perfection, it's always going to fail. It's always going to fail. It's never going to work because every human being is flawed. And even if you feel like it is not true, they can have a goody two shoes. I don't care if even Mother Teresa had a dark side, you know, she also had a dark side. Honestly, yeah, like a lot of people were exposing her on her journal because she started doubting God and doubting, like, yeah, I'm serious. She started doubting God. Yeah.
I
So
was gonna say, I don't want to interrupt, but I was like, I always have this weird conspiracy theory that Mother Teresa ruined the world. Don't quote me. I always say, I'm like, if it wasn't for Mother Teresa, people wouldn't think that you had to be like that.
oh yeah, absolutely. Nobody's Mother Teresa on YouTube. Nobody's trying to be Mother Teresa. So I feel like we just have to meet in the middle, you know, like I'm not gonna be perfect, but I also don't expect you to expect me to be perfect either because it's never gonna happen, you know? So that's just how it works. And I don't know, I just think people need to stop being extreme. Like stop being extreme. Like
There's something about living life and getting dirty and experience things. And at this point, like, we can't even do that. So, and then they'll like blame me. Like if I say that, it's very easy to say, oh, Alyssa wants to do bad things. And it's like, yeah, I want to do some bad things. You know, bad things I want to do. Like, I want to tell you about it. I want to go, no, I'm not going to tell you about the bad things I want to do. But actually, you know what I was thinking about it? 12th house Pisces, age of Pisces, the end of the age of Pisces. When do we get so Piscean, like Pisces, that it has to all go? Like you look at even my rising, you know, stars midheaven, like there's, it's Pisces. And so you kind of start to understand what exists. Nothing exists there. Like my personality, I never really have one. I mean, it just becomes whoever I'm talking to in some way. To even find out who I am was really hard.
I think it's that me and you, we have immutable rising. Like Gemini and Pisces are mutable signs. The fixed signs are Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and
Leo.
Yeah.
They're forgettable. Just kidding.
With mutable signs like us, we really do, like, I'll pick up accents or pick up gestures or pick up like people's things, you know. It's like not even like I'm doing it consciously. It's just like it's actually a social thing for people to do, is mimic in a way, like when you're talking to someone.
It makes sense. Yeah, it is. It's mutable is very much like that energy that we have between people, just in conversation, because that's why it rules conversation. It rules Gemini. Mutable energy does. And so when you are together, I almost kind of am like thinking too, like, is this like mutable energy trying to get through like this fixed internet? Because like the internet's Aquarius, right? Like Uranus, like this is the network. There are walls to fixed signs you can't break through. Like no matter how hard you try, it's not going to give it up. And so here we're all very mutable people. We want to exchange energy and we're just like can't. And so you just get bigger and bigger and bigger in your own energy. And if this energy is very mutable and is trying to like change things and become more spiritual and more evolved, yet it can't force itself through, you know, the walls to another person, you can't, I don't know, destroy it actually. Like maybe I think people are really just, we have a tick in our mind. There's still evil in the world. There's still evil in the world. We have to kill it. We have to kill it. And we just can't get to it. And that could be it. So we go to things we can attack. And so a big thing that people can attack is YouTubers, because they have no walls. Like nobody's trying to cancel Jennifer Lawrence right now. Nobody's trying to cancel Brad Pitt.
I'm curious to know what the astrology is of why this is happening. I mean, I want to hear what you have to say because I'm dying to know.
I think the implications right now, what's going on is just that, you know, astrologically, we're about to enter the galactic center. And this is something that it's a chaotic time right now, honestly, not only in the conscious collective, but also just as individuals. I feel like we're all being held accountable for the things we've done in the past. And I feel like this cancel culture, this is what I wanted to say, is that this cancel culture that's going on right now, like all these things are coming out, right? But it's like, I feel like it needs to happen. The exposure needs to happen because once it's all exposed, it needs to be regenerated and renewed. And that's exactly what I feel is happening. This cancel culture is not that we're canceling Shane Dawson, we're canceling all these celebrities. It's just that they have to now present themselves differently after 2020. Because I think after 2020, everything's going to start to heal. I think this is a very climactic year. And I really feel like this year is very like a buildup because, I mean, the Vedic astrological aspect, what I'm trying to say is that I have never seen so much radical transits in 1 year, the way that I have seen this year. And the aspect that we have Kala Sarpa Yoga, which is where all the planets were on one side, since January up until like it's actually going to end up until the ending of this month. And we've been seeing that like whenever we have that yoga, there's like so much extremes. So you see, like we've been going through the coronavirus, exposure, people wanting to, expose people like in the workspace. Like it's so extreme right now. Like people are not thinking right, radicalism, left and right, politics. It's a very explosive time. So I feel like this has to happen because even like the nakshatra that the K2 is in, the Nriti, I'm sorry, K2 is in the nakshatra of Mula, which is ruled by Nriti, and she is the goddess of destruction. But remember, she is the goddess that destroys, not because she wants to harm, she wants to destroy things that are rooted in falsehood. That's what she wants to destroy. So I think everything that's rooted in falsehood, whether it's things that we can no longer tolerate as a conscious collective, we cannot tolerate it no more. We cannot have that anymore. So I feel like this is why this is happening, because I think everyone has to step up to their true selves. After exposure, the only thing you can do from there is be your true self, which is the reason why I feel like everybody wants to now be authenticated, because we're about to embark into a brand new dimension. I really feel this. I really feel like can you imagine people literally, I cannot imagine people going crazy over Hollywood actors after this. I really can't.
No.
I can't imagine the way, people going to the movie theater and just like, I just think people are just too woke right now. I just don't see it, and I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, what do you guys?
I love that, because I was thinking another dimension, and what would you have to go through? A portal made of fire. And the ring of fire is literally the galactic center.
Yes.
You see the black hole surrounded by stars, and how the galactic center is an immutable sign of Sagittarius. So all of that energy kind of comes full circle with exactly what you said. We're going through this huge portal as a collective, and so we will all be different. And that is why, if you are gold, if you've lived your life authentically and at least true and at least trying and at least kind of living after, like, I feel like God's heart is creation. I would say that, like, living for creation, for creating, for adding to progress, for giving to people, not like losing yourself and just being a selfless person, because nobody can physically do that. That's spiritual bypassing. But I mean, like, really trying to get to know yourself. And I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time self-reflecting, getting to know themselves, going through ego deaths, the dark night of the soul, and really having to challenge themselves there, like, they are stronger, you are more powerful. And each person has their own story. Not everybody has to get canceled to experience that. Not everybody, has to like have a hardship to experience that. It's just about your life, where you're at now, and were you capable of being true to yourself. And then it's when you're gold and you can go through a portal of fire and
Absolutely.
live.
Absolutely. That's beautifully said, because I mean, I think about it and I'm like, since 2020 started, we've had Rahu and Ardra. This constellation is ruled by Rudra, the god of the storm. And then you have Ardra, then Ketu and Mula, which is Nriti, the goddess of destruction. You have those two things coming in together at the same time. And if you think about it in history, this happened actually, the last time this actual transit happened was back in September 11th. That's when it happened. And it's really interesting because after every time Ketu goes into Mula, Rahu goes into Gemini and Ardra. After that, Rahu and Ketu become exalted after that. So it does represent, like, from September up until next year of, I would say, December, there's going to be so much healing going on. So much healing, because it's all of this had to happen in 2020 so it can basically erupt into something and let it transform, Essentially, that's what the Gandanta knot represents. It's like when it goes from a water element to a fire element, it has to evaporate. It has to be turned into mist. What Alyssa says, vapor.
Yeah,
so vapor, right? So it can literally regenerate and be reborn. So, like, it's really interesting how, if you look at the cycles, how, when September 11th, it felt like the apocalypse.
Yeah, it did.
People were like, what's going to happen after this, And then before that, it was the AIDS pandemic that happened back in the 1980s. Before that, it was, what happened before that? It was the, before that,
the Spanish influenza, I think.
What is it?
The Spanish influenza, I think.
Oh yeah, Spanish influenza was the same transit as well that we went through right now as well, which is really interesting that happened. But also the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki back in 1945, the same thing happened, you see? So explosive events that pretty much changed our, like, us as a human consciousness, you know? So I think we're ready for it. We're definitely ready for this change.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I don't know if this is my Saturn return, what I'm feeling, but I've never went through a spiritual awakening like I have since all of these things have happened. And I've noticed that everyone collectively is going through this spiritual awakening too. So I don't think it's just the Saturn return, because everyone I know has experienced it. I really do feel like you said, we're hopping dimensions, because people are totally changing. Like how someone was 5 years ago, it's like I'm talking to a different person. It's so crazy, because people say people don't change, but I don't understand that, because everyone I've known has changed so substantially in the last 10 years. I don't know how to explain this, and I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it, how just consciousness has changed completely. Like you said, with Hollywood movies, like everyone's like, oh, like we need celebrities in their mansions telling us to stay inside. Like, no one's having it any. So what I'm curious about is what's coming next. Like, what's next for humanity? What's going to take over?
The galactic center, to me, she does represent chaos. In the mythology, the Greek mythology, chaos was the primordial deity. She existed before Eros would be love or God. And some people actually don't go that far when they go into the myths, and they'll talk about Uranus and Gaia. But Uranus and Gaia, they came after chaos, the female, and love, like the masculine energy. And chaos, to me, like she's zero. She's the fool, and she's the galactic center. And I was thinking a lot about that, like how that's this, it feels very dark when it pops up, but that's because it's like this dark paradise. It's this divine feminine energy that has to just go up for balance, and not like to take over and to tip the scale or something, but it's going to hurt when she rises up, because we don't realize, but we're living very masculine lives. And a very masculine life is a very straightforward, go to college, get a job, structure, 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 structure. You know, don't create, like don't just be wild and do and be free. And so that's what I feel like is happening. And but first there's got to be a lot of exposure. Like if you let these people go wild, what are they doing? They're doing evil things, you know, like we have to expose that. We have to see this. And also feminine energy, even if she's chaotic, what does she live for? She lives for children. She lives for like women. She lives for feminine nature, like feminine men, you know. And you get into like minorities, she goes for anything, the underdog, and she's picking that up, like the black sheep, all of that. And I think that's just what it is. And I'm like, so if that's what's coming, why are certain things being ripped out? I'm like, because they don't align with her, like the female. So I'm like,
Actually,
what
I
if,
want to comment on that, what you just said, about how this is a masculine society, which was brilliant, because I think a lot of people think that we live in more of a feminine society just due to the politics and our TV shows and how, open we are. But in reality, we do live in a masculine society, because as you said, the feminine energy relates to children. Well, what do we do with our children? We're expected for both parents to work most of the time. And then where do the kids go? Into the institutions, into the schools, being raised by other people in the establishment, which is masculine. And then, for instance, if you're a business owner, and you have your own business, you have to know that it's not going to be as easy for you to get loans from the bank, because they'll see you as a business owner as not being as stable as someone who works for a corporation and gets a steady paycheck. These are all things that you figure out when you are a business owner. Even with like renting things and stuff like that, the system is kind of rigged against like the free spirit, the creative, and the feminine rules that side. So yeah, definitely, it's crazy.
it is, I like, so if what happens then, like all those things that you said that have been harder for that energy to survive, like I feel like at the end of it, that's what lives, you know, this energy is now allowed to live. And you look at it too, like the world shut down, and I do think that the world is shut down, and there are evil connotations to this, like definitely out of control and power when we get in conspiracy stuff, but I'm not gonna, but I think that that's where they don't realize that the feminine can live with that. The feminine survives under that. She's been doing that. And so she's like whispering in people's ears, like, do something different. You don't have a job right now. Go do something creative. There is something I do want to say, because I do feel like anybody who's watching this, I would love for them to like be inspired a little bit. There are like 46 million YouTube channels, like, or something like that, right? And that seems like a lot, and it seems like it's super flooded. And whatever, it could be. And there's different, niche, I don't know that word, niche. There's different niches in there. There's different places. And there's always a spot for you, and there's always something opening up. And I'm like, because there's 8 billion people in the world. And just like we don't understand the difference between a billionaire and a millionaire and how different that is, and how they could give up so many billions worth of their money and or millions worth and still be billionaires, we don't realize that the billion people in the world, they might be waiting for you to kind of rise up in your own creative power and put yourself on the internet, and you will have a job. And like back in the beginning, we were saying there are people with 5,000 YouTube subs who make more money than people with 2 million YouTube subs, because they're getting their name out there through YouTube or through Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, but their money is derived from, giving readings or offering some other service or something, because the internet is for women. And I feel like, and men, like feminine men, like anybody who wants to create, it's just like, it's how do I call it? It's like a gateway. It's like a secret gateway, but a lot of people are told, no, you're not allowed to go that route. Like you got to walk the straight and narrow. It's too much of a risk.
I honestly, when I got on, I never thought I would ever grow my channel to be the way that it is now. I thought honestly, the first video I posted was I just thought, oh, it's a fun video. Like Life Path 1,
Yeah.
But once I started getting views, I was like, okay, I can see this being a career. And then I remember after around 2017, I left my job. I only had $10 to my name. I remember this. And oh my God, I remember this so vividly. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. I have no idea. And I just remember I was like, I surrendered, and I was like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. That same night, I went to sleep, and I had somebody, 2 people booked a reading with me. At the time, I was only charging $60 per reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried of happiness. I was like, oh my God, somebody wants a reading with me.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
So it's those little things that really humble you when you think about when you first started and how far you've gone. And it's just, you just have to be grateful for those little things, But yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but when I made my first video, I was like, I thought about it for a little while, just kind of, but my first video was uploaded on the day I made my YouTube channel. I had been thinking about certain things, and I woke up, I spent an hour and a half on my makeup. I put an outfit together. I really didn't have any style, and I didn't even clean my apartment, but I just went in front of my webcam, and I was like, I'm going to teach you how to do cardinal, mutable, and fixed signs. I'm going to tell you the difference. And I stopped, and I really was like, Alyssa, you're a fucking idiot. I just said that to myself, and it's obviously has a lot to do with my own insecurity, but it felt stupid. And I was so nervous. And it's how can you be nervous just talking to your computer? But people don't realize that's the energy that's there at the beginning, because you're pushing through some form of portal, some form of change in your life where you don't know. It's the unknown. You don't know where you're going to go with it. And there's a lot of people who film videos like I did, and they don't even post them. I posted mine and weirdly got a couple hundred views, and then I posted another one and I got a couple thousand really fast, because it was about hating Virgos, and who doesn't? I'm just kidding.
Bridget, I actually have a question for you that I think would be really interesting. What in a chart shows that someone is meant to, speak on camera or be on YouTube or anything like that? Is there a specific thing?
Well, I think you have to have really, I think the best conjunction to have for that, it's either Mercury. I don't know if you could agree with me, Alyssa, because you could tell me, but I think Mercury and Venus, I see that all 3 of us have Mercury very closely conjunct our sun. And I'm talking about Vedic.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Vedic, I'm talking about Vedic. So I feel like you have to have very great communication skills. Not only that, but Venus, Mercury closely conjunct as well makes a really good speaker, very charismatic. And I think it gives you the gift to truly showcase that very, very beautifully on camera. Not only that, I think 3rd house is really important too. 3rd house, I think, is because 3rd house gives you courage. It gives you the ability to do things that are outside of the ordinary, extraordinary things, and you're able to actually complete them and do them. So you just have to see how strong your 3rd house is. I feel like that is very essential.
What's a strong 3rd house, though?
A strong 3rd house to me would be for example, if you have a malefic planet like Mars, Rahu, Saturn, or if they're ruling that particular house, because you need a very strong planet to be able to give you the courage to be able to go after what you actually want to complete. So Like, for example, like if you have Mars there, I mean, you're like a dynamite, you know. Rahu there too is really, really strong because it's able to give you and expand that so much for you as well. So I just feel like, yeah, you need a very strong third house, very strong fifth house, by the way. I know you have Jupiter in the fifth house. So it's Star Girl. I know you have Jupiter in the fifth house. Do you have, you have a fifth house too, right, Alyssa?
Oh no, well, I'm looking right now. I'm like, what's my Vedic chart? Because I like forget it. So,
No, totally, yeah.
Because I'm like, with my third house in tropical, I just have Chiron there, and I have Gemini, and so like my Mercury is obviously a part of that, but then it's also intercepted in the seventh house, which makes everything kind of really messed up in my third. But in Vedic, I have Taurus in my third. I still have Chiron. I don't know, Chiron's not a thing.
You have Taurus in your third?
But your Rahu moon and in Taurus, right?
My Rahu moon is in Aries in Vedic.
You're like in the cusp of.
Yeah, because I'm a Kritika. Nakshatra, my moon. Because this is kind of interesting because in tropical, what I notice, a lot of people who are really good on camera have a lot of Neptune, because Neptune rules film, and so yeah, Neptune's not really a planet in sidereal astrology or anything like that. So I'm like, I get that, but I've noticed that like Neptune, because you kind of become one with the camera and you're not really afraid of it, and there is a sense of fear that people have, but it's also why you get into celebrities, really good actors who actually have a lot of drug addictions or like alcohol problems. Like filming is very closely correlated with that. Also, I feel like there's no boundaries to you and somebody else, and so people are more likely to attach themselves to it. I've noticed, like, I thought in my brain that Scorpio is a big thing, and I've noticed a lot of like tropical Scorpio risings. Your Scorpio rising in tropical, Bridget, right? So when I first started astrology on there, every single astrologer was like a Scorpio rising. Like not a lot of them exist as much anymore, and I don't know everybody's chart anymore, but I've seen a lot of like Scorpio risings, and I felt like they kind of command power and presence in your rising.
That's interesting because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah,
I just don't want to forget. It was interesting because Bridget was saying you need a strong third house to be on film, and Scorpio risings have the Capricorn in the third. And I've actually noticed that Scorpio risings, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of astrologers, but I've noticed they're the most famous, the most heard of, the most actors, musicians, famous, like Eminem.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's just what I know right off the bat. But, like, everyone.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of Sag risings, too. I was just thinking. A lot of Sagittarius risings, they're just living their life by Jupiter. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm just expanding myself. This is just the next step. This is what I do now. And so they're able to, like, climb in a way.
The thing is that, yeah, like Pisces is like water sign risings, but except Cancer. I've noticed that like Gemini and Cancer risings, they actually tend to be like the tarot readers and the astrologers. And I'm not just saying that because of me. It's almost like a lot of the ones that I have seen or have come to me for chart readings that were wanted to be tarot readers or astrologers or psychologists tend to be Gemini and Cancer rising. So that's interesting to me how you've gotten the opposite where it's Scorpios. And messes with my theory because I always thought it was just because in the 8th house, Gemini and Cancers have Saturn and Aquarius, which means your karmic debt. So the 8th house is psychology and the occult, whereas Scorpio risings, you know, theirs is in the third house, right? So it's like film, TV, media.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I think like what we could say is that there's certain aspects that will deliver different characteristics to you on the camera.
Most of the YouTubers that are really big, they have to have Rahu conjunct something, and especially Moon and Venus, because that's how you connect with people. Venus is very, very very devoted, you know. Moon is also connection with emotion, you know. So like you also have some power play in regards to that too, with the Rahu and the conjunction of Moon or Venus.
And thank you, Bridget, for the kind promo in the background.
Oh my God, absolutely.
I want to do this too. And Star, like I have here
Lilith ascendant.
Let's all pull out our Lilith ascendant candle. So
Check
beautiful. I have Lilith on my Rahu, but I don't know. No, it's like a degree. It's like Lilith is like either exact or it's 1 degree today.
Mm.
So it amps that up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. That extra like